Hello, listeners. Before we begin, this is just a disclaimer that today's episode will be dealing with mentions of sports gambling and mentions of sexual abuse.
Welcome to today's special episode of The Change Up. I'm your new host, as always, Billie Lieber, and today I'm joined by somebody who I talked about in the previous episode of The Change Up, and that is my uncle.
Hello, Billy. Thank you for having me. My name is Jeremy Young. I'm a senior producer at Al Jazeera English Television. I work on the documentary program Fault Lines, and we do 25-minute documentaries on a range of different topics.
And today we're going to talk about something that pertains to one of the things you worked on quite recently, right? Yeah. The Big Gamble.
Yeah, so I produced a most recent episode for Fault Lines called The Big Gamble, and it's about people who have a gambling addiction and how they cope with it during a time when gambling is expanding more in the United States than in the entire history of the country.
And I guess, what are your overall thoughts on, the act of sports betting itself?
Well, there's a lot to discuss, Billy. I think the first point just to make that, it's quite obvious, sports betting has become omnipresent in American society. It's if you go to a game, if you're watching TV, if you're using your cell phone to access social media, you're going to see all kinds of promotions and advertising for sports gambling. And that seems to be sort of the new reality that's setting in right now in the United States.
What do you think are the ramifications of, the ages of people becoming interested and, participating and wanting to participate in sports betting, slowly deteriorating?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to think about. So in most states, you have to be 21 to legally gamble. Now, if you think about it, betting and gambling, whether it's on college basketball, it's filling out an NCAA tournament bracket, or participating in a football or rotisserie baseball league where you're picking players and maybe you're betting against your friends, those are kind of a separate category of betting and gambling. Those are parts of American society. I would say they're not as high risk. It's different from betting on a game when you're betting with a sports book or you're betting with a bookie. That's a different act. And I think one of the important things to note is that it's becoming more popular for kids who are younger. So it's already moving into that age group. And like I said before, given how omnipresent it is in American society, it's undoubtable that there's going to be a collision.
So prior to this little recording session, we did a survey. I think we did it about a week ago. So we have a week's worth of data.
I can tell you that information that you're gathering from high school students, it's really unique and should be very illuminating.
Going back to the whole social media and, technology discussion, one of those questions asked how, people will place those bets, and 30% of our survey came back with apps being one of the most popular choices and ways to use and to utilize sports betting. I mean, I would say I'm definitely a victim of that myself. Online, I used to watch a lot of videos that were talking about soccer and going to all these cool stadiums, and always mid through these videos they would promote this app called Omada. And in theory, looking at the app, it's honestly kind of smart, because what makes Omada stand out from the rest is that you cannot buy the currency that you use in order to bet each and every day. I personally think that it's a negative thing for even these types of apps to exist. And a couple of responses to people who think there's positive solutions to negating underage sports betting believe that these apps should be made inaccessible. And I think that these apps and this app itself is partially responsible for betting in younger ages.
So something that's important to discuss is that there are sites that are legal to bet on essentially as an 18-year-old. Not to advertise these products too much to your students, but you should be aware because they do exist. There are different types of, and I'm sure a lot of people, juniors and seniors especially here, probably already have access to this. But there are different types of games where you would basically, they call it daily fantasy, and it's where a large group of people pool their money in and you can win real money and gamble that way. It's different than betting on a sports app or betting at a casino. And those are available at age 18. And I don't know for how much longer that's going to be legal and allowed because essentially it is gambling. But Omada is interesting because it simulates gambling. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Which still, I mean, that could reinforce, especially we've been talking a little bit about young people. What we do know is that brain development continues into your 20s up until you're around 25, 26 years old. And so forming these, especially online gambling habits when you're 16, 17, 18 can become quite destructive later on.
Fun fact, actually, a good, the majority of the people who filled out this survey, believe it or not, were freshmen, which I perceive that immediately as kind of being, a bad sign because I feel like, this is what could get passed on. This is what, what negative behavior that can be passed down from other people can, present itself as. And also we had a question that asked if their family bets, how did they hear about and get into sports betting?
Can I guess?
Yeah, you know what? Go ahead.
Older siblings?
That was the biggest answer that we had on that question. And would you like to guess what percent of people have family that gambles?
50%.
40%.
The other phenomenon that's relative, you were talking about freshmen who know how to gamble or do gamble. There is also a phenomenon that exists, which I would say is like a father and son bonding experience where sons and their fathers bet on sports together. And the father might even open an account and give his son access to it. They'll bet on games and watch games together. That's another phenomenon that people don't really talk about much publicly because I think the fathers know it's a little bit shady, but it's something that does happen.
Going on to those like phenomenon, let's say you're with a group of friends and you're like watching a TV show, I don't know, Dancing with the Stars, for example, and you're with your friends and you're like, I hope Ilona Maher stays in. When another friend might go, no, I want, I don't know, Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade's in it, right? Yeah. I want Dwayne Wade to stay.
I definitely root for Dwayne Wade.
I want, this person to get eliminated or not. And you place those playful $5 bets. And actually, this anonymous freshman said, sports betting has not affected me or the other person who has done it because it's in small amounts and it's lighthearted fun.
Well, I will tell you, and this is what we haven't talked about yet, but I did a lot of research into gambling on college campuses in the United States, both legal and illegal. There's vast networks in which students gamble on sports, both below ground and now that you can, in many states at 21, you can legally sports gamble. It's caught on like wildfire on college campuses. And in some circles, that's all they do. The guys get together, the gals get together, and they sports bet and they watch sports.
On to, since we're on this lovely topic of sports, we had a Walter Johnson athlete respond to this survey.
Interesting. What did they say?
They said that this anonymous senior said that they bet every week on what seems like, at least from what I understood from on their own team, every meet that they have. And I find that incredibly shocking.
Well, look, it's not surprising. I know you say it's shocking, but the reason it's not surprising is because it's the natural next step as you think about how we've allowed sports gambling to just, kind of take over the airways and sponsor our arenas and really dominate sports culture as it spreads and spreads and spreads. So if you play on the team at Walter Johnson and, even the kids are, smart enough to make up their minds for the games, so they know what they're favored for and people want to place bets, it doesn't surprise me.
And also something else that I remember watching from Al Jazeera, I don't remember what it was called, but they were talking about the corruption that was going on in FIFA.
The Al Jazeera's investigative unit, which I used to work in, has done several groundbreaking documentaries about several different issues: corruption, yes, and also sexual abuse within the FA.
What do you think about like these high-ranking officials and high-ranking parties? Like, they say we're promoting this fair environment, but in reality, under all of that, you have betting, bribery, all of that going on.
I think that they made a clear decision that we're going to take the money, and what happens as a result is going to happen. This was, remember, with the NFL, their position used to be that they would never be involved with gambling in any way, shape, or form. Remember, nobody could have a sports team in Las Vegas. The last Super Bowl was in Las Vegas, Nevada. So that's the kind of 180 degrees that these sports leagues have done. And with that is going to come scandals, right? There's been scandals in the NBA where players have been banned for life for betting on their own games. So the punishments are harsh.
Transitioning into the negative connotations around participating in sports betting, what did you take from your work on the big gamble when it came to the effects of participating?
It's a great question. And there's lots of people who sports gamble and can do it for fun and are not addicted to it. And for them, they don't have a problem. And I imagine a lot of people who responded in your survey would have responded along those lines. I don't think it's a problem. I don't bet a lot of money. But for the people who really suffer from addiction, and Billy, remember, gambling addiction is classified alongside heroin when it comes to how addictive it is. People who really suffer, they can't stop. And it can cause, life-changing alterations for people as a result of gambling addiction. And, that's why we chose for our documentary to spend some time with people who have struggled with that and are currently dealing with it.
I feel like when I had to do some of my own research before going into this, and I mean, that did include watching your documentary. I feel like sports betting in its entirety seems like one of those things that it starts out so trivial and so,
Blasé.
Exactly. But I feel like that kind of thing, it just spirals and spirals and becomes something far worse than what it starts out to be. And I mean, somebody made a really good point on one of these questions, talking about, how they got into it. And I feel like it perfectly describes how sports betting is. They said, it started out as a bragging rights thing between friends. It started in my family and neighborhood friends. We would say, I bet, ... And if we were right, we would brag about it. At the moment, it's the same, but sometimes food gets involved. When I'm on my phone and I will scroll on things like Instagram and, sometimes YouTube, I don't watch that sports-related content anymore. But even I will get ads from, FanDuel. I feel like at this point, because I could be watching a video about, history and get an ad in the middle of my video talking about sign up for the sports book to get 250 free betting dollars. It honestly feels at this point that it's like they're searching for these people, and it's like, we don't care what you're doing. You could be the least possible person who's into sports, but we're going to make you do this.
To you for sure. And well, remember, we also haven't discussed this twin addiction to both gambling or sports gambling and cell phones. So, for example, studies have been done to understand that your proximity to a casino, if you live within 50 miles from a casino, for example, you're more likely to develop a gambling addiction. And what we've done with cell phones is we've gone from 50 miles to
right in front of your face. Yeah.
That proximity to using a cell phone in our our addictions that we have to cell phones already on top of the gambling kind of doubles things up.
I've gone to like Ravens games with my dad, and it's like you can look at the Jumbotron and be like, oh yeah, I love what's going on in this game right now. Now on the bottom, when you see those tickers, you've got FanDuel and other, lines going at that same time. And it feels like, if you're trying to bring your kid as like a way to just bond, and you just, I feel like younger me until, now when I'm still not really that much into sports, I could go, ooh, what is that? Like, what is that talking about? And, like, that could have really got me.
By the way, Billy, you mentioned before the amount, you get a certain amount of money if you bet $5. What were the ads you were saying?
Things like you get 250 betting dollars if you sign up, or
what
some
other
like that.
business offers you $250 of free money if you put $5 in? If you put your credit card information in and you only have to put $5, we'll give you. Like, that doesn't happen if you go to Home Depot or if you go to Chick-fil-A or...
I mean...
Where does that happen that you get 200... So to me, that's a red flag.
I feel like it's definitely looking at those ads. It's like, it seems so good on the surface. You could be like, yeah, free money. Duh, I want some free money. And it's almost too good to be true. And I think, again, going back to Omada, those really small... harmless, quote unquote harmless, things that are meant to simulate or are just a light gamble, a light, loss of your money should you lose. I think that creates a habit. And I feel like a lot of people answered the questions that pertain to, how do we deal with this problem within the community, and how do we deal with it as a whole? Because a lot of people who answered this survey, when it came to, do you bet on just WJ? Do you bet on all sports altogether? A lot of that result came from betting on just WJ and other sports outside of the school. I think those, what seems like small and frivolous, unimportant bets, and again, going back to what a lot of people said on this, is that it's $5 is $5. I know what I'm putting on, the other team winning, the other team losing. I know when that's too much. And it's like, I feel like people don't get it, that it's like, you could say that now, but later you could still be doing it, but you're, giving up. Maybe you're selling off your house.
Look, I think what's important is that people have awareness of the dangers of gambling addiction. So, for some people, sports gambling is going to be fun, and legal sports gambling is okay. And, I don't think we should, negate that. But I think what we should encourage people to recognize are that if there's anyone around you, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, a parent or an uncle who you feel like might have a gambling problem, make sure that they know that there's resources out there. 1-800-GAMBLER is a 1-800 number that can be accessed and called in case you feel like you need help. And there is help out there for people who are suffering from gambling addiction. It's just the more aware we are, the better we'll be.
We asked in this survey as well, what are some possible solutions? Some that really stood out to me. There were two that really stood out. An anonymous freshman said, I think if they don't place an outrageous money, like above $20 is what they said. If they don't place above that amount of money.
Stricter betting. He's not stricter betting limits.
Yeah. And another anonymous freshman said that betting in general should be regulated in order to prevent people who are not thinking clearly to bet away their money. And they said, if you're drinking and you're drunk, you're not going to think properly. So it seems, those two are kind of similar in this sense.
Yeah, another dangerous addiction point combining with the cell phones and the gambling is, if you can place a bet at your home on your phone, you could also be inebriated, which you couldn't necessarily do in a casino.
And again, a lot of people responded like, why is this important?
I think it's just most people aren't aware of the dangers, and
Yeah.
they just don't know that it can be the kind of thing where you could, lose your home, like you said, or
Right.
even worse things can happen for people who really suffer from that addiction. So I think the more people understand about that, the more aware they'll be.
I mean, it was a common, kind of sentiment among those who answered that question, that it was also very much like they were very self-aware. There's a lot of very much, I know myself, I know when this is too much. I know when too much is too much. I know when I'm probably about to make a bad decision. Do you think that it's like you could know those things in the moment, but it could be absolutely different later?
Yeah, I think that's possible.
The whole kind of the other group sentiment of, is this worth solving? Like, is this problem? Do we care? And why should we solve this problem? Why do you think we should solve this problem?
Yeah. I mean, like we've said a couple times, look, it's just something that you need to be aware of the dangers of. It doesn't hit everybody the same. For some people, it's not a problem at all. And then for others, they really suffer as a result. So, just something to make sure that the warning signs if someone's struggling with addiction, and make sure that they know that they can get help.
If you want to speak to any experience, go ahead with filming this. What is your solution to specifically underage gambling?
Oh, I don't know about providing solutions to it. But, in working on the project, I got to meet and we went out to Las Vegas for the Super Bowl week. So we got to interview, professional athletes and folks who were out there for the Super Bowl. And just got a lot of different perspective and heard from a lot of different voices, players. And so, I would just encourage people to continue to look at all sides of every issue and every story and know all the different angles and explore it. And this is one that's rich. Like there's good stories to follow and there's good story angles. Well, Billie, thank you for having me on. I just wanted to say, remind your listeners, The Big Gamble is on YouTube. If they type in Al Jazeera, The Big Gamble into YouTube, they'll find our documentary. Just put comments at the bottom. We always read people's comments. We love to know what you think about our work.
And make sure to check out Jeremy's Emmy-award-winning, documentary, The Shark Fin Hunter.
Also on YouTube.
I hope you all enjoyed this very special episode. Humongous thank you to my uncle, Jeremy Young, for agreeing to be interviewed and for being a part of this. Thank you to the WJ Pep Band for composing the intro song. And until next time, see ya!